Dear colleagues, good afternoon. I'm happy to welcome you to our corporate panel, which is going to be about integration of eFX platforms in the Treasury management systems in-house. Let me introduce the panelists. Today, online, we have Anna Sokolova, Treasury Director, Center for Corporate Solutions, NLMK, PJK, UCLH, Ruslan, Karmanny, the Head of Corporate Finance Department, EuroChem, Vadim, Gromyko, Head of Hedging and Financial Risk Management of Severstal company, and just near by my side I have Shevchenko, Executive Director, Sberbank. As I've said, so we're going to discuss integration of eFX in the Treasury management systems in-house. Last year, this corporate discussion was around discussion whether it was necessary to shift to eFX platforms, single bank or multi-bank platforms. Today in 2020, due to shift to remote mode, many corporate clients decided that without eFX platforms, life is impossible. And now they have more serious goals. The integration of these eFX platforms they have opted for into the in-house ERP Treasury management systems. Now I would like to ask our panelists to share the current situation, what are your state of affairs with integration, which goals and tasks you set in front of your company, and which level of integration you would like to see. Whether it is a basic level of integration, where you just fine-tune eFX systems to automatically process the transactions inside your treasury management systems, or back-office arrangement. This is maximum level of automation, when treasury management systems calculates and foresees the payment calendar, makes a decision what amount of FX should be bought and sold, and the last stage it executes, it converts those eFX platforms which you switch to. Let's start with Ruslan. Please, can you share your state of affairs, which goals you set? Alexander, good afternoon. Can I be heard? Yeah, you can be perfectly heard. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to participate in such a very interesting summit. I'd like to outline those approaches we use in EuroChem company. So the starting point was, and this key stakeholder of the company, main shareholder, clearly outlined his strategic overview how such companies should be managed in the 21st century. From the perspective of this vision, the company is decomposed in a number of items: production, commercial, and financial positions. And financial positions are built on top of that. Therefore, the treasury of our company is responsible for financial position development management. So we're kind of in-house banking for the group of the companies and for other divisions. In this respect, the number of requirements for us, the speed of transaction requests, processing, and decision-making speed is high. Now we're actively working on eFX Treasury Management Systems implementation, special technology which allows us to have all the transactions in a single system. Whenever we see a new FX position, we can evaluate its impact on cash flow to risk ratio. We can set the order to exchange platform to get the order executed, to have settlements, and then we can see market to market based on the position we have as at the end of the working day. Apart from convenience it gives and the lower time for decision making, we can also make those decisions data-driven approach. The second strategic task which this platform allows us to fulfill is to get rid of compliance. I believe that the robots in the next forthcoming years have more prospects rather than human traders. If we look back on what happened on those markets, it's clear that the complexity of markets is growing, not in Bitcoin, but in fiat markets as well. In new reality, I don't believe that we're living in kind of a crisis situation. We're stepping forward to the badlands of uncertainty. In this radical uncertainty, there are no other options. If we used to take a spectrum, on the one side we had accountants, on the other hand we had traders. The accountants are the people working by the rules, by the exact rules. The goals are clear, but the trader is a spontaneous person who is to respond to the situation very quickly. So this spectrum is very long from the perspective of where the modern robot is and where the traders and accountants are. From my perspective, they are not far from each other. I would say that we're not for full automation, we are for radical digital transformation. We're all constantly looking at the market and we are ready to try and test any solutions which would allow us to have seamless integration of our systems with exchanges. Anna, which goals do you set and what interesting solutions do you have as of today? Good afternoon, can I be heard? We are lucky because we've been always for digital transformation to a particular extent, and we developed information systems supporting for protection functions for a long time. Particularly, we have implemented the seamless connection between our trading platforms, Bloomberg and Moscow Exchange, with our own ERP SAP system, which reflect our financial results, which are sent to the bank for execution through POS channels. This is the set of tasks which we had. We implemented that. But in fact, talking about the prospects of further development, we have a lot of options, actually. Robotization of the process should open new prospects. Now we are ready to give execution of transactions to robots, not the technical execution, but signing those deals. As for the support and lower burden our traders, we're going to be there, definitely. This is going to be the next step of ours to develop the functionality and the toolkit, or next seamless step of this process. Thank you for your input. Vadim, which level of integration does Severstal plan to achieve in the forthcoming future? Good afternoon, Alexander. We've been working on eFX platform for a couple of years, and starting the launch, we had an idea of integration with our ERP system, but so far it is just a plan on the paper. It's purely connected with the fact that the company is shifting to new solution. Therefore, I'd like to avoid this double effort. Overall, we believe that we need basic integration for starter, which looks like the exchange of information with the platform and ERP system, not other way around. But I believe that in the future we will be interested in full integration, which we're going to have a special tool to calculate the market position, probably giving the orders. But this is going to be the consequence of our today's effort. As of today, we're striving for this basic seamless integration between the eFX platform, our treasury management system. We believe it might be a source of operation efficiency for those who are engaged in eFX. Since the full integration of eFX systems in treasury management system implies huge level of automation, I'd like to ask you the following question. What is your attitude to the execution of big lots? Execution of big lots by robots. It's clear that small lots can be trusted to a robot, and you being those owners of big lots. So what is your attitude to that? Taras, I'd like to ask this question to you. Do you have any robot clients you have to communicate with? Good afternoon. Thank you for the opportunity to take part in this discussion. We have corporate clients who are more digital. So the colleagues are moving in the right direction. Ruslan has said that the digital transformation is happening much faster. Of course, in Sberbank, there is robot-based solutions. Talking about the big transactions, decision-making cannot be trusted to a robot yet. The execution function can be trusted. We don't have an algorithm which would have the access to all the current data and can be learning constantly. But to find an algorithm which can optimize execution component and give some recommendations, it is possible, and it exists as of today. But the last decision is to be made by a person, by a human, and robot is trusted only with the execution itself. Talking about big transactions amounting to $50 million and even higher, our colleagues said that the quotation through the voice channel will be better, as you need to consider the open position of the trader, the situation with liquidity. You cannot get good pricing using the machine channel today. This is in brief about our position. Anna, how do you see the execution of a big lot? Is it an art or a science which should be taught to a robot? I wouldn't put it in this way. It is an art, but robot can be taught. The question is around the resources which we're ready to spend on robot learning. Under current circumstances, as our company is operating, I would say that it will depend on which KPI we have to traders, what we want to achieve in the lot execution. If we need to see reasonable analysis of the market and traders following the macroeconomic indicators, what is happening on the market, in this respect, the trader will not be able to do that. In the future, yeah, it might be possible. Under current circumstances, it is impossible. If we want to have algo to give in parts under the algo in particular timing, it is possible. We need to lower trading stuff costs. It might be possible, but from the perspective of maximum efficiency, I stick to the point that it's better to analyze using human. Talking about the optimal KPIs, we're going to talk about that. We're going to have a separate question in this respect. Ruslan, are you ready to trust robots with execution of big lots on our high volatile market? Ruslan, can you hear us? Ruslan, you have muted your mic. Yeah, now you can be heard. Sorry about that. I do agree that Taras has said, and as well. From my perspective, as for the execution, everyone is going to switch to execution performed by robots. It's difficult to compete in this respect. As for the trust,
as to whether to trust them or not to trust, I think they can be trusted to form a signal, and whether to, use their recommendation or not, this is again up to the manager. Much would depend on the level of pain that you experience. If you think it is a very good execution, you don't need robots. You don't need to spend time, research. A robot may make mistakes, and then you will be responsible for those mistakes or have to tackle those mistakes. We take a different view. Let me comment on this from the point of view of our trades in NDFs and for ruble. Well, liquidity is not so much. We had problems with execution, even with lots of 20 million US. But if you take the sampling for the trades that we did or did not do, because the quotes that we received from banks were very bad and we decided not to go ahead, we thought they were not fair, then this whole story with execution is not that bright, and you probably would think twice or thrice whether you would use a robot instead of a voice. And the robots would be executing smaller lots, but at least you won't really leave without an execution. Hence, if you take this view, we thought that, and when we analyzed our efficiency in the past several months, we realized that because of better execution, we could have probably used even several robots and then actually have a beauty contest between them to select the best ones. So again, it might be quite a promising way forward to work on. Vadim, are you ready for the rise of the machines, and what do you think about the robots? Vadim, we cannot hear you. Yes, Sasha. I think that in principle, the world today is very dynamic and corporate treasuries are developing. So in future, it might be well that we can test different tools that would improve our operational efficiency. And maybe at some point of time in the future, we would test the robots who would be sending some trading signals and recommend some decisions. Currently, of course, we don't have that. Rather, we have the decisions on some major transactions to be made collectively. So the decision is made how to split one lot and maybe at what point in time, or maybe to postpone some purchase, etc. But as far as execution is concerned, then I would say that even today, some very primitive robots are being used, like splitting an order into several parts and, sell it in the market at a particular time. Then this is something that we can already do using the eFX platform functionality. That's probably what I can say. Thank you. And the next question that I wanted to discuss with you is actually the choice of an eFX platform. In the past, a choice was made visually, I would say, who had a better or more simple interface, which interface you liked better, who offered additional functionality like graphs, news, chats, etc. Now, because of those large-scale plans to integrate, you would have new requirements to those eFX platforms, I would presume. And since most of the participants in this panel are sell-side people, they would appreciate to hear from you where they need to focus and to send their resources in developing and refining the platforms to be closer to clients. Anna, can you say something? What interesting are you considering, and are there any integration tasks that you set for yourselves, and maybe you would be, going from one eFX platform to another because of such plans and tasks? Yes, indeed, we are analyzing eFX platforms on a regular basis. And despite even the fact that we have been cooperating with the existing ones, but of course we are looking at what new opportunities the market is offering. Our choice so far is remaining the same, and there are some key factors that determine our choice. And what those factors are, I would say, is the comfort of use, the comfort of integration, that is like seamless integration, and the ability to do simultaneous quoting requests for several counterparties, because this functionality to us is of paramount importance because of the way we operate. FX instruments and tools like order book monitoring and macroeconomic analysis, this is something that we also need. We have not yet ceded our execution to robots. We use traders, so this is quite relevant to us. Ruslan, since you have the most ambitious plans and goals in mind, did you find already an eFX platform that is up to your mark and is in line with your integration plans and providing the best liquidity that you hope for? We are still searching for that, and indeed the set of requirements to the platforms is changing. Our idea is that a platform should be fast, relatively fast, should be able to work under load, should be able to process a lot of information and data. We don't want to be dependent on one counterparty or bank. This is just a strategic fear, if you like. We don't want to be in a situation when our capacity in future would be limited by the set of services provided by just one counterparty. So that platform, of course, should be for a number of counterparties. So new requirements there. Treasury should be able to work from home. And in Switzerland, you can work from the lake or from the hill. So the platform should be flexible so that you can trade from your smartphone, but it should also be cyber safe. It should have an open API or at least certified by somebody. Now, looking forward, robots at some point in time in the future would be evolving, of course, and even today you need to have some functionality put in to, work with complex strategies. Of what I have seen lately, we probably had some solutions that we would be, thinking about and talking to people. Vadim, do you have any ideas as to how to refine the existing platforms or platform? Or are you happy with what you have already? I think that currently we are quite happy with what we have. We have enough functionality there. When we analyze a new platform, it would be important to have an interbank platform, of course, so that we can also have some simple testing of that platform, and so that the platform would be integrated. We would like to have more or less like a box solution that we can use, and perhaps then think how to integrate this with our systems without spending too much time in terms of human resources. And these are the most important facts that we would like to keep in mind for that. I think you were right about mentioning those, box solutions. Taras, do you have any box solutions or ready-made solutions? Well, in general, of course, I'm on the sell side, and I'll try to be objective. The choice is always of the client, and it depends on the needs and tasks of the client. If you care about competition quoting, so the solution would be an aggregate solution. But in the aggregate solution, you will have to, disclose the size of your transaction to banks, which potentially leads to not so optimal pricing. If you take NDP platforms, then you need to integrate those with many bank systems that actually provide you pricing inside the aggregator, which could be labor-intensive and money-intensive. So better and a simpler solution would be to integrate with one or two technological partners who have broad access to market liquidity, like, for example, Sberbank markets, that actually more or less have liquidity from external sources like the exchange and the OTC, but they also have internal liquidity from the clients within Sber. And one more point, what Ruslan mentioned about OT Grow, I think that's a good platform, and we are a liquidity provider in that platform, but rather this is a platform for professional traders. And if you as a corporate have resources to do the follow-up integration, to integrate with that platform, then it's okay. But if they are not ready to spend so many resources, then probably the choice would be to take a ready-made platform available in the market. Another issue that I would like to discuss today is whether we have some optimal KPIs in FX execution. Some optimal KPI that can be applicable to both small and big lots. Vadim, what do you think? What do you have in Severstal for KPIs, and what would be your optimal KPIs as you see those? I think optimal KPI would be quite different for different parties. We're a company who is seeking to minimize financial risks and minimize as well transactional and labor costs. We are trying to come up with a KPI which would have the least burden on and load on our staff, so that it would be a more efficient process. We are not trying to monitor the responsibilities and the performance. I would say that we rather want to have an opportunity to make sure that the price that we transact is the best available price, that it is very close to the reference price. Most probably this is the exchange price. And generally speaking, these are the two main points for the KPI. Also, as a KPI, when you may think about the timing, 3 days, several hours, etc. But in terms of, I think potentially we would probably take the average rate, say for 2 hours within an operational day. That's what we think. So you're in favor of TVAP, VWAP, and using those algos. Yes, TVAP is our choice. We have not heard from other speakers. Maybe they would be able to help us in developing the optimal KPI for the buy side. Tim, do you have a good formula that would be effective today and that you will use when you migrate and upgrade to robotical trading? A couple of points here. I see that the Treasury will be bifurcating. Would be core Treasury with core Treasury functionality which would not require much analytics or take, say, payments or basic spot conversions. This would be one part of the Treasury operations, and the other part of Treasury operations would be like a corporate treasury, probably not. There's no good term for that, but this would be for more complex trading using advanced analytics, and on the surface, this would be something that hedge funds are doing. You take a level of risk, you assume a level of risk, and you return some profit on that risk, which is on average better than some, baseline risk. Taken this way, the core treasury functionality KPI should be quite simple, should be connected and related to the spread that you are getting for your transactions, and you may be quite creative as to how to use that. When you don't know anything, you live happily, as I like to say. But when you start thinking, then you would be having some reasons to be discontent. If you're not going into much details as to whether you have good execution or not, then you can claim that you transact at market, and that's okay, which in actual fact is not so. As for the strategic treasury and its KPIs for a hedge like Treasury, I think KPI there, when the Treasury learns about a position which is probably for 6-9 months ahead, then we try to think how this could be executed given some trends, and then this would be the benchmark, and the Treasury operations would be assessed against this benchmark. How this situation can be adjusted and adapted to the needs of your stakeholder. I don't think that there are any absolute KPIs. KPIs would be just a form of communication between a stakeholder or the asset owner and the manager who is hired to manage those assets. KPIs should send a clear signal to the manager what kind of performance is expected. And there can be another option when you're trying to catch and capture the absolute return, and you can probably try to assess the VWAP over the horizon that you have in mind for the position or portfolio that you are taking. And so there you can probably define your KPI. And Anna, what is a KPI that you have in mind? We don't have the golden middle perhaps, but maybe just a rule of thumb, more or less, a TVAP or something else that can be agreed upon. Maybe. We discussed this with our colleagues about robots and platforms and integration formats, and now we come to discuss KPIs. I think it is a very case-by-case story. As Ruslan mentioned, it depends on the goals of management, of trading, and the managers of treasury. So I think that perhaps we won't be able to find whatever standard we have in mind, because for any corporate, these things are very individualistic and peculiar. We need to probably proceed from the goals that the managers set to ourselves, or the owners of the company. Our approach is quite simple to, evaluate our transactions. And here I support the previous speakers. We actually think about how that the transaction should be tender-based. Out of the quotes presented, we choose the best one at the moment of transaction.
Both among the exchange quotations and those offered by the bank. The second aspect, we are comparing the efficiency of those transactions against the average rate quotation on the exchange. We have remuneration of a trader tied to this KPI and the remuneration for the company as trading the whole treasury function is outsourced. Therefore, the remuneration, the floating remuneration of this outsourced activity is in the percentage of how more efficient you are. That's how it works with us. And it's quite successful. It is a good incentive for trading as it works two-way street channel. So the records show that it works quite well and in a stable manner. We won't have a golden or silver standard as an outcome. The last question I'd like to address to Taras. Taras, based on your experience, could you share with us which trends you can see on the market right now, which new solutions can be seen, which would help us to simplify this integration task for corporate clients? Before answering questions, I'd like to comment on the previous thing. Vadim, as a representative of a classic, conventional corporate, aim at average quotation, which is quite conventional for a treasurer, who doesn't want to be engaged in trading, unlike Ruslan and Anna, who are trying to add a kind of creative component as corporate treasury solution. That would be my definition for that story. Where you have a person who is responsible for that and who knows the market, who tries to outperform, like in hedge funds. KPI is quite an individual thing, depending on what the beneficiary requires from the treasury function. Shifting to solutions Sber has in integration on eFX. This is our flagship Sberbank Markets platform, which is a multi-product platform to conduct transactions on the financial market. The initial aim was eFX, but then the functionality expanded. Apart from eFX, you can have depository transactions, currency derivatives, precious metals transactions. I'm not going to steal your time advertising our platform. I'd like to focus on two most required technological solutions which our corporate clients use. The first one is purely connected with the fact that many companies having contracts, settlements in which are tied to the central bank rate. On our platform, we have a function, treasury management and in-house ERP systems of the whole payment calendar, which are going to be executed based on this contract with automatic order to convert these transactions at CB rate. We hear a huge flow of requests for this solution. It works. So the convenience is that when the order is executed on a particular day, our system is integrated in, can send the information on the transactions executed on the quotations of the execution. And the second solution for the companies which prefer to work in DP, we have a solution through API to send our flow of prices through Bloomberg or to any IRP. And if Sberbank is the winner by FX quotation, in this case, we do not require confirmation. We have a post-trading solution which improves the client's path and lowers operation costs both for the bank and the client. This is brief. This is my brief. You know, this confirmation solution you provided is great. Dear colleagues, do you use this functionality while trading on multi-bank platforms, or you're just trying to stick to a conventional one? Anna, the floor is yours. Thank you. In fact, we're at the transition stage when we try to define which format we opt for, with confirmation or without confirmations. Both solutions are interesting enough, but in the option without confirmation, we see higher risk in terms of traders signing these transactions, making these transactions. We're not ready to comment on that, whether we're going to shift our banks to those transactions without confirmations through trading platforms, or we are going to stay in the configuration we have been using for a long time with confirmations. Operation component is effectively covered through this gateway seamless connection with the bank, host-to-host solutions. So we don't have any extra costs in this respect. We're thinking about that. The solution is very interesting, and many banks are thinking about that. Vadim, Ruslan, are you ready to switch to confirmation-free trading under the Russian law? I don't have the exact opinion on that, but what Taras has said is very interesting. eFX is one of our short-listed platforms for transactions beyond the Russian Federation. If you can trade with Sber in our domestic transactions in ruble, this is great. This is great. Everything depends on how systemic approach and systemic interaction with the bank you have. If you have everything documented, so this confirmation-free option is great, and it makes your life simpler. I do believe that it's a very interesting, useful solution. Vadim, what is your input? I would agree with the colleagues of mine. The platforms give the reports which are trustworthy proof of a transaction and can be relied on. It's not necessary to spend your time on extra work and extra effort. Of course, lawyers might have their view, but from the perspective of business, working without confirmation is reasonable and sensible in eFX respect. So we have something discussed after the panel discussion. On KPI, we haven't managed to achieve golden or silver standards, but this issue is going to be elaborated on beyond our session. If we have any questions in the audience online, we don't have any. So, dear colleagues, thank you very much for finding time to participate in our conference. Thank you very much.